Hey, what's going on, guys? Jun here with Hapa英会話, and joining me today is Olivia. Hey, Olivia, how you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me again.
All right, so today I want to talk about whether you associate yourself more as an American person, a Japanese person, or somewhere in between. Obviously, growing up in the United States, you go to American school, but your mom is Japanese. I know that as a kid, you used to visit your grandmother in Japan. I'm assuming that you have Japanese friends as well. So 今日はね、そのハーフとしてアメリカ人、自分自身はアメリカ人なのか日本人なのか、それとも本当にそのハーフっていうこのグループなのか、どっちなのかについてちょっと話したいなと思うんだけど、どうオリビアの場合は？
とても難しい質問ですね。やっぱり depending on where I am and who I'm talking to,the identity that I identify with more can change. So especially when I was younger and in a very small Catholic school that was majority white students, that was where, since I was different and was kind of made to feel different by the others, I kind of tried to exaggerate my foreignness more to show them that I'm not going to hide this away just because I'm the only one. I'm going to kind of bring it forward and try to educate you all. So I wasn't that coherent as a kid, obviously, but when they said ew, your uncle looks like dog poop. I think every Asian kid has gone through that phase of oh, the white kids are making fun of my food, my Asian food that my mom made me. But then you use that as an opportunity to say it's actually really good. It's made from red beans and it's a dessert that we eat a lot. So I think even as a kid, I tried to bridge that gap, which was difficult because, again, I was little and all by myself in a very small school. But then as I got older, going to public high school and college, my worldview expanded a lot more and I encountered a lot more people from diverse backgrounds. So in that sense, it's really nice to be able to share your culture.Both sharing my American side with international exchange students who are not familiar with America and US culture, but also sharing my Japanese side with Americans and Asians alike who may not be that familiar with Japan.
そういうことだよね。僕の場合はロサンゼルスで生まれ育ったんだけど、幼稚園から4年生まではロスにある日本人学校に通ってたんだよね。So I went to a private Japanese school.
Yeah. Wow.
So my
That's
first
awesome.
language in terms of education was Nihongo, and all of the students at that school were Japanese students. So 最初に日本人学校に行った時は、僕は日本語がそこまで喋れなくて、で、やっぱりちょっといじめがあったんだよね。子供の時の方が僕ハーフっぽかったんだよね。My hair was a little bit lighter. I looked much more half American than I do right now.
なるほど。
そう。だからその学校に行った時は、その外国人扱いをされた。So I was like the 外人, right? I didn't look like the other Japanese kids, so they made fun of me, right? で、4年生の時に僕は、アメリカンスクールに転校して、で、I transferred to an American school. で、1週間に1回、朝日学園っていう日本人学校に通った。I went to like a Saturday Japanese school. But when I went to the American school, when I got transferred, もう英語が全然喋れない。日本語学校だけだからその自分がね、英語を喋るときはお父さんと喋るときだけで、ね、4年間、5年間それが続いていると喋れないんだよね。英語が。I couldn't speak any English at all. Yeah, it was really crazy. So what happened there was 4年生の時に今度He's Japanese みたいな。So 日本人学校に行った時は外国人扱いされて、で今度アメリカンスクールに行った時も同じように外国人扱いされた。So it didn't matter if I went to Japanese school or American school, I was always like quote unquote the foreigner because I didn't fit everybody else. だそれが多分子供の時にあったから、It was a little bit difficult. I think I always found myself trying to fit into the rest of the crowd because I didn't want to get like made fun of, right? いじめの対象になりたくなかったから、できるだけみんなとこう馴染むように、日本人だったら日本人の中に入るために一生懸命になって、アメリカンスクールに行ったら今度アメリカ人と一緒に仲良くなるためにこう溶け込もうとした自分がいたんだけど、やっぱり多分そういうのを子供の時から経験をすると、It's tough, right? Because I feel like you don't really feel like you're ever a part of one group or the other. I always felt like Japanese people never fully accepted me as a Japanese person, and American people never fully accepted me as an American person either. Soなんかそういうのはね、僕子供の時からあったような気がするんだけど、オリビアとかそういう経験あるそのアイデンティティクライシスとかっていう、自分は一体どっちなんだみたいな。
I definitely felt it more, and I went to Saturday Japanese school like you did. So, and we called it Hoshuko. But at Hoshuko, I use mostly English because I went to American school, so I was using English at school every day, and in the home I only spoke it with my mom, Japanese with my mom. So when I went to Hoshuko, where I was surrounded by native Japanese kids whose primary language was obviously Japanese, and they were still in the process of learning English because they had just moved there. If I messed something up in Japanese, like o or wa or like ni and ga, like mix something up, then I felt kind of bad because none of them ever messed up anything like that, but then I would sometimes, and they didn't necessarily like point that out or make fun of me for it, but you still feel kind of bad, like 私だけ完璧に日本語が喋れないで、音読する時も漢字が読めないそんな気持ちでちょっとどうしようと思いました。
なるほどね。でもやっぱあるよね。だからその学校に行くことによって、やっぱ自分自身が他よりもね、他の方がやっぱ優れているっていうのを感じると、there's like that one, 劣等感 Is that the word? I'm not sure if that's the right word or not, but there's definitely that sense. これオリビア同じように感じるかわかんないけど、there are times where I'm like hanging out with my American friends and I'm like having a great time. でもアメリカ人とだけ一緒に長いこと過ごしすぎると、sometimes I miss hanging out with my Japanese friends. And、なんか日本でまた日本の友達とこう会話をするとか遊ぶっていうのは、アメリカ人とはまた全然違うんだよね。I enjoy both, so it's not like I enjoy more of the other, but I like being with my American friends, but I also like, switching over and, just being my Japanese self with my Japanese friends. なんかそういうのってオリビアもある。
絶対ありますね。I think you can definitely call it code switching because I mean, you're literally changing from English to Japanese, but also the way I carry myself around my American friends versus my Japanese friends, and then also my Hapa friends, there's a variation between all of them. So, like you said, ちょっとアメリカ人ばっかりで時間を過ごしすぎると、ちょっと日本の文化のちょっとその気持ちが表せないって感じもしますね。And sometimes I want to use like a Japanese phrase that fits the situation really, really well, but I can't because none of them will understand.
Exactly. この時はもう日本語しか伝わんない。でもこの状況はもうこの英語の表現を使わないともう自分の言いたいことが伝わんないみたいなね、あるよね。Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.だからやっぱそういう意味ではやっぱそのアメリカ人といる自分の順がいて、で日本人といるときはそのね、もちろん言葉もそうだけどね、オリビが言ったみたいに、the way you carry yourself, right? その自分の出す雰囲気とかね、ちょっとした仕草とか何かに対する反応の仕方とか、全部がやっぱその言葉だけじゃなくて、なんか自分自身がその使う言語によってちょっと変わるから。I feel like that's kind of the good and the bad that comes with growing up from two different backgrounds, right?
Yeah.
今ね、ちょうどオリンピックじゃん。で、オリンピックが開催される中、どっち応援する？例えばアメリカ対日本だったら、which one are you rooting for deep down inside? Or is it like just like どっちでもいい Or is it like, でもやっぱこっちに勝ってほしいとかっていうのはある。
やっぱりどうしても日本に勝ってほしいんですよね。だか
だ
ら同じ競争でアメリカ人と日本人がいたら日本人に勝ってほしい。で、日本人がいない場合はアメリカに勝ってほしいんですけど、やっぱりアメリカももう毎回メダル勝ち放題なので、ちょっと rooting for the underdog そういう気持ちで日本の方がもっと勝ってほしい、そういう気持ちです。
いや、俺全く同じだ。I'm exactly the same as you. I think if I see like an American team versus a Japanese team, or like an American swimmer versus a Japanese swimmer, やっぱりね、日本人応援しちゃうんだよね。日本人に勝ってほしいっていうのがなんかあるんだよね。いや、もちろんやっぱ自分の日本人の血もあるけれど、やっぱここはちょっと日本人に頑張ってほしいなで、しかも日本人がそこでアメリカ人に勝つと、なんかこう、やったみたいな、なんかちょっとこうね。
Yeah, the expectation is always like the American team is the strongest and the best, so of course they're gonna win. That's what everyone thinks going into these types of sporting events. So like even when there was a women's soccer game, I think it was the World Cup between Japan and US, I wanted Japan to win because everyone thinks America is projected to win, but then when Japan really rallies and 一生懸命頑張って勝つときは本当に感動します。
感動するよね、本当に。いや。
でもお父さんがやっぱり Go USA だから、私と妹とお母さんは頑張れ日本でお父さん一人だけGo USA だからたまにね、お父さん側に移ってちょっとお父さん一人ぼっちだからGo USA も言うけど、本当は心の中では日本に勝ってほしい。
はい。And maybe you know, ね、その大坂なおみ選手も she had a choice between choosing the United States and Japan, and I think she ended up choosing Japan. もしかしたらね、これハーフ全員がね、同じ気持ちじゃないのはわかるけれど、でもやっぱりね、ハーフだと、特にアメリカ人と日本人のハーフ、日本人の血が入ってると、どこかね、日本を応援したくなると思うんだよね。I don't know if that's common with a lot of the Hapas out there, but I feel like there's definitely like that sense of you're kind of rooting for the Japanese for some reason. 何なんだろうね。
Yeah, I brought this up with an American friend a few years back during the last Olympics, and I said, you know, America wins all the time. Like it's a little bit boring because they win everything. And she said, well, I think that's kind of awesome. So, you know, depending on what culture you're familiar with, like if you're Hapa, どうしてもね、日本がアンダードッグだから勝ってほしい。
勝ってほしい。そうそうそう。いや、そうか。じゃあ同じだね。その、なんかやっぱオリンピックを見て、ね、なんかやっぱ自分自身でアメリカ人なのかな、日本人なのかなってちょっと改めてね、今回思ったんだけど、同じハパとしてね、オリビアも同じように感じるのはちょっと嬉しかったわ。
嬉しいですね、お互い。
そういうことでね、そのアメリカ人なのか日本人なのか、多分ハーフの場合はね、よくわかんないっていうのが正直な答えかもしれないね。やっぱアメリカ人といるときはアメリカ人の自分がいて、日本人といるときは日本人の自分がいて、でもやっぱそれがね、ハーフで生まれ育つ良さでもあると思うんだよね。You kind of can, swing both ways, I guess, in that sense. And you don't have to just stick with one category. You can really roam around and pick and choose the ones that you want to be in at that moment in time. So, いいね。やっぱこういう話ができるのはね、本当にハパのお友達だけなんだよね。
ハパだけが理解できる気持ちと
か
ね。
最高だね。いや、いい会話だった。ありがとう、Olivia. Thank you very much.
ありがとうございます。
And I hope everybody watching this enjoyed our Hapa conversation today. And if you guys are interested, Olivia is an amazing tutor on Cafe Talk. You can find all of her information in the description below or go to cafetalk.com and find her there. All right, Olivia. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you too, Jun-san.
Bye.
Bye.